Okay, on the way right now, a man, a legend. I mean, honestly, and I've got to give him 15 minutes because he's got more verbal diarrhea than me. Henry Bolton, international border control expert. Good afternoon, sir. How are you? What is that red tie all about, man?
Hey, look, this is African.
Oh,
elephants, giraffes, rhinos. I was born there, you know.
Were you?
Yeah.
Whereabouts?
Yeah. So I've got a photo somewhere of me 2.5 years old, sat on the back of a rhinoceros. There you go.
There's a thought. There's a photo somewhere of Jodie and Ryan on holiday. I'm not going into it. Anyway.
I know that sort of photo.
Yeah, I know. We've seen it. Henry, welcome. Listen, I think most people, and I know you have a military background as well, are sort of saying today, I'm going to say they're up in arms. This is the day that our Prime Minister has insisted that he will increase defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2027, and he has an ambition, of course he does because he won't be in power, to make it 3% by 2034. So we're going to have dozens of nuclear-powered attack submarines, £15 billion investment in the sovereign nuclear warhead programme, all of this, and yet many people, thousands of people, are saying, but we're going to allow our country to continue to be invaded. And in fact, we were given a stat by James Price, which I want to put to you. Since 2018, 150,000 migrants illegally have entered this country, 150,000, which is already twice the number of people in the British Army. What an absolute joke, HB.
No, indeed, and it's, 2,000 in the last 10 days, well, probably over 2,000 in the last 10, 11 days or so. The rate is increasing. I predicted that it would increase because all you have to do is look at the flow across the central Mediterranean route, which then sort of proportionally feeds through. You know, it takes a while for them to move, but there's always a sort of fairly steady proportion of those people crossing the Mediterranean and the other routes, the sort of the Balkan route into the European Union. So, you know, because they come from up through Spain and from West Africa, they come across North Africa and the Mediterranean to Italy, Malta, and so on. And then they also come up through Turkey and the Balkans. So the sort of, and also to a lesser extent that these days, because of the war in Ukraine, through Eastern Europe. So you've got that flow, but the Central European route into the Central European sort of Union, sort of across the Mediterranean, that feeds through to a sort of latent effect on the North French coast and the Channel. And if you look at that, then you can see that you can predict an increase. Well, that increase has been entirely predictable. We've put no additional resources in place to address it. Which means it tells me that the government and the authorities responsible for this have not actually predicted it, which tells me that they are simply not functioning correctly. Well, I know they're not anyway, but there's evidence for you. James was entirely right that the numbers are huge, massive, but we're still not having any positive effect in reducing that flow of boats across the Channel. I'm glad that now more and more people, including James, but other people, and as you said just now, even the government is starting to get the message that we need to deal with the pull factor. These people arrive and, you know, in a very liberal, British sort of liberal sort of, you know, come and have tea and biscuits type of approach, very, very naive. These people have actually been, that whole attitude towards these Channel migrants has been an actual factor in the pull.
Right, I'll tell you what you do, because he's shouting at me. I want you to hang over the break and stay with me till 5. Is that all right? Henry Bolton after this break on Talk Drive. JK on Drive, back from his holiday. You lucky people. What do you want to talk about? 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Ian says they could, of course, process the boat people in the Chagos Islands. Oh, no, that's another 9 billion down the Swanee. Henry Bolton, international borders expert with me. On a serious note, we've talked repeatedly about what should be done. In simplistic terms, you said something before the break that I think is so important. It's the pull effect. It's what I've been talking about forever. We can talk about turning boats around. We can talk about getting out of the ECHR. That'll be fun with how left-wing and human rights loving our PM is. The fact of the matter is, Henry, this country, in my mind, makes it so easy, so affordable, so attractive to people. And that's gone on forever because apparently we have to apologise for being the worst nation in the world for the next 5,000 years. But for me, we've reached a point where the British people are now at the back of the queue because of that, and that's why people are objecting massively. Don't you agree?
Yeah, I do, entirely. They're being ignored. The British public has been ignored in a number of elections, not least the referendum. where a lot of the vote has been because of immigration.
Yeah.
And it's not just the pressure on housing, on public services, and the effect on the rule of law, antisocial behaviour, knife crime, gang crime, and all the rest of that, which has all been contributed to by immigration, both legal and illegal, and a failure to integrate. But in addition to that, it's the effect on people's communities and culture. There is an organisation that people won't have heard about. I think we've talked about it before, the Organisation for Security and Cooperation in Europe. It's the world's largest diplomatic security organisation. It deals with conflict prevention. And one of the fundamentals of that is what they call environmental security. But it's not simply sort of the environment as in climate and pollution and so on. It's about the environment in which people live. If they are subjected to massive cultural change too quickly, then people feel insecure, they start to get aggressive, defensive, and it can lead to internal conflict. And of course, the phase towards that is tension, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing, understandably, an entirely human reaction to people's culture, their environment, their communities, their streets, and their schools and everything changing beyond recognition just about within just a handful of years. And that is, again, entirely predictable. It's a factor that has not been calculated for in any government policy that I can see. And, we have got a perfect storm brewing. If the British government does not act, and as we've said many times before, Jeremy, there are ways to deal with this. If it doesn't act, if it doesn't find the will to engage on this problem, then it is going to get worse in every conceivable respect. And that worries me. It worries me deeply. And it frustrates me and makes me angry, as it does everybody else.
I couldn't agree more. And I think we haven't got long, but do me a favour, as simplistic as you can, because you are a genius at this. For people listening, and you've got 1 minute, what needs to be done in basic layman's terms? Make it less attractive to be here. Certainly leave the ECHR, right?
Yeah, you've got to leave the ECHR to enable you to do other things. This is something you can put to Zia later. Reform want to leave the ECHR to stop the boats. Well, talk me through the various stages between leaving the ECHR and stopping the boats. Now, of course, it removes obstacles to dealing with the pull factor. It makes it enables you to make it a more harsh environment. But part of that, as you were saying and James was saying earlier, and it's catching on, thank God, is that once these people arrive in the UK, if they get that far, then you have to detain them. We don't know who they are. Some of them we know present a security risk and a risk to public safety. We must securely detain them behind wire, ideally on somewhere like the Ascension Island, where it's not in the UK. It's not associated with the UK in their minds. They're halfway around the world. You will start then, if you are robust about that, you will send a very clear message. You are damn well not welcome here if you try to enter illegally, and you will go back or you'll sit on an island in the mid-Atlantic. Fine, your choice. But we've got to have the political will to do it and the knowledge and to do it. And I don't see any political party, some of them are moving that way, who's actually there yet. I just don't see it.
Listen, mate, it's an absolute pleasure. I will put that to Zia Yusuf, Chairman of Reform, is on after the news. Henry Bolton, International Border Control Expert. Thank you very much.